Shalom Rastafari, Assalamu Alaikum, peace to the kings and the queens of the earth. How's everybody doing on this holiday Monday? Big shout out to everybody, for one, who was at the parade last Saturday out here in Florida, out here specifically in Titusville. And shout out to everybody who's got through the weekend. Hope everyone's safe. Shout out to my people up north in Buffalo, New York, and upstate. Hope everyone's getting through the storms. You made it through a situation and you're safe. I haven't really heard anything yet, which is good, right? Compared to some of our storms. So sending some guidance, sending some protection to my people back at home and across the East Coast or wherever you have storms at. Hope everybody's safe. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the best and greatest people to walk this planet. To me, despite the mistakes, despite things that might have been looked at, this man, Martin Luther King Jr., will be respected. He will be honored, and today is a holiday. But I also want to give a shout to one of my brother, my cousin Steve, for really bringing this to light and thinking that, not forgetting it. And me actually living in this state for 4 years during this time. I definitely had to bring it to the forefront. Arizona was one of the last states to acknowledge or approve of the holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. I do remember moving there in 89, and I stayed there from 89 to 94, I believe, or 93. And I remember going out there, and before I got out there, it was hearing, Arizona was this place that people was a punchline, right? Like, not too many black people in Arizona, but there was tons of black people in Arizona. I remember going to the churches and seeing like that was a huge stereotype. There was a lot of us that were out there that might have moved from LA because one, tourism was great, but two, housing was very cheap. And Arizona was it was a modern, good state, especially in the Phoenix and the Tempe or areas like that. It was a pretty good area, and it was developing. However, there was a racist contingent that was completely still there and was there at the time. And they didn't approve of the holiday. They didn't really want it. To get into detail, they had to go through specific legislation. They purposely did not really go to it. I remember the governor, his name was Governor Evan Metcham in 1987. And he literally just made every excuse possible, talking about how the state couldn't afford to pay state employees one more holiday day. Like, it was just really weird, but obviously it was extremely racist and he was called out for it. And what happened was there was a boycott. It started really becoming hard as far as for them to get tourism out there. I remember Stevie Wonder, who was popular at the time, called for a boycott. The Reverend Jesse Jackson called for a boycott, and it continued. And all of a sudden, it was put on the ballot in '91 to make it happen, and it didn't make it as well. I remember seeing newscasting people who were interviewing people were talking about how, well, if we don't have a President's Day, we should have an Abe Lincoln Day, of course, and all these things. And why does he get a day and our presidents don't get one specifically? And it was core. We all know the racial undertone of that. And it continued. They lost a lot of money and it continued. But what was the calling card was literally in 1993 when they were awarded the Super Bowl. They in turn canceled that and shipped it to LA. And even some of the owners were sitting there talking about, well, I kind of sympathize with, I sympathize with those people in Arizona, but we don't have a choice. And yeah, you don't have a choice because at the end of the day, from a lot of the football players and people who were in your organization and coaches were refusing to go to that Super Bowl and play. One. Number two, that would be the biggest punchline there, and it would have been the biggest controversy, and then you would have lost tons of money. The very next year, it was put on the ballot and it was approved. But don't get it twisted. Arizona was one of the last states to approve of the holiday fully. And the only reason why I was there, it was because of the Super Bowl. I remember seeing the banners there from the beginning of the year, and then it went left. And it was a lesson that really hit that state, and it made them look foolish because they in turn lost the Super Bowl, which we all know is one of the biggest events to happen in the planet. It brings in people from across the world just on media alone. And with that said, the money that would influx the economy off that one event could have just went, it was, especially during that time, it could have been great. But it took the NFL and it took real boycotts and took that movement of money to really shift in. And they try to blind that. They try to run away from those, the accountability of that. I just read some articles of it. They just kind of talked about it in 2022, and it was kind of a short little article, whatever. But let it be known that Arizona was one of the last states, and it took them to really get a serious boycott and then to lose the Super Bowl. And I wanted to bring that to the forefront. One, just talk about his life. My mother loved Martin Luther King, had pictures of him in our room, in our house, had vinyls of him talking, had numerous tapes of him talking and speaking during his speeches. She really loved his outlook because of her Christian faith and her Baptist faith. Of course, she loved the nonviolent situation. And I will not turn my back on that. We're not going to sit here and talk about some of the things he did not do right and this. And toward the end of his life, he knew that he was bamboozled. He knew that there was something wrong. He knew that some of the mistakes that he made, and he knew that he led his people, what he called, into a burning building. And he knew that he was being trapped. And that's when I think that they knew they had to get rid of him and unalive him. And so today we commend Martin Luther King. And it's so funny how some of these racist people, you'll vote for Trump. You'll look me dead in my face and say whatever, but I guarantee most of y'all get the day off and you have no problem taking that day off. And you're getting paid for it as well. So some of y'all really don't really understand that at the end of the day, you still going to sit there and honor this situation, but you're going to get paid for it, and you're not going to even, you're not really having a mentality. You don't really care. And at the end of the day, it's something that we need to continue to bang harder and stop talking about his downfalls. I was blessed, again, to participate in the parade this Saturday in the small town of Titusville, and to see how we were going through South De Leon Street and having more cops than even people who were in the parade. And it wasn't even needed. We had an amazing, peaceful event. There was church folk out there. We didn't even need them. And even the young G's that I talked to, they said they wasn't trying to do nothing anyway. They knew the holiday. They were switching up the game themselves, knowing that it would be stupid for you to try to start some violent things in an area where there's a bunch of church folk trying to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. And we really need to understand seriously what he's done. All of our leaders, really. Commend them, continue to bang for them. And I'm just honored to even be living in this time. I'm honored to have, Saturday shake hands with people who shook hands with Martin, who walked with him, talking to the NAACP, having events. And that was just one. Shout out to people out in Orlando. There was tons of things going on. Shout out to people across the diaspora. I know back in Buffalo, they were having all types of events out there, galas and fundraising events in his name. And I think that he would be very proud to see how we are still moving, but he also knows we got a lot of work to do. So at the end of the day, man, shout out to everybody who bangs for the MLK and knows what it is. If you don't, do more research on today, knowing that you have a day off for it, knowing that you should really be researching. Some people don't have days off, right? Some people still have to go to work, and that's fine. They'll have to go to work on President's Day too. But government-wise, just wanted to really bring that out, that Arizona was one of the last states, and shout out to my man Steve, to approve of him. And it took a serious boycott for them to really get their act together. Let's look at those actions and see what we really can do. When we take the money and we take that investment away from them, they have no choice. They didn't come back to the humbleness of what really is. And they went back into their racist caves that they came out of. Shout out to everybody. One love. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day.